disrupted, being reinvented, and we've got three of the best inventors I know in this room today, and I'll get them to tell you that story soon. Locally, our own business momentum is very much reflects that pace of change. In ANZ, our business has grown 200% year on year, and we continue to add around 4 or 5 new staff per quarter to our burgeoning Australian team, which is great for us. So at that point, I just wanted to quickly introduce a couple of the people who are going to be speaking today. Firstly, on my left here, we have Ben Shields, and one of the hats he wears is he is a partner at Deloitte Private Clients, and he is a great inventor, and he'll tell you the story that he read his own research. Deloitte obviously created a lot of research, and he read a piece of his own research that talked about disruption in the marketplace, and he was able to make and disrupt and reinvent. He prefers the word reinvent in a very established industry. So Ben, thanks for coming, and I look forward to hearing your story. On my right, we have Geoff Wanless, and Geoff's with a company called Swann Communications, and Geoff is the CTO there. Geoff's got a great story about how an Australian company really has pivoted to really access global markets and access this new Internet of Things phenomenon. Really interesting story and some great product features and benefits that he'll share with you, and great research on how he built that out, which he'll share with you today. And finally, I have to say this, but I really do think he's a great inventor. We have Tien, who's the CEO and founder of Zuora. He, just as many of you may know, he just got off a 24-hour flight, and I put him straight at Telstra just to really make you feel welcome. And now he's really coming good, so it's actually a good time to talk to him. So he's a great inventor, and I really have to say that, from a leadership point of view, boundless energy, great vision. He's actually a great guy to work with. So I might hand you over to Tien. And Tien's really, many of you around the room, because there's some familiar faces, understand that our subscription concept and where we're heading with it. But I think what Tien's going to really highlight today is relationship business management, which is a kind of a fork in the road, or a focus on customer centricity at the heart of everything that organisations are doing. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Tien.
Great, thanks, Greg. As Greg mentioned, just got off a plane, so might be a half a step slow. I might not remember exactly what I said tomorrow morning. But the flip side of it is think of me as on truth serum. You can ask me anything, and I'll probably just answer straight away. So we've got a couple great customer stories here, and it's good to be back. It's good to see a lot of you again. It's kind of a good milestones in across time to kind of come to Australia, meet with you guys, and sort of reflect back on the conversations we've had before. The reason we do these things really is to give you some of these amazing customer stories, right? Our customers, the company stories of what they're doing to do, because I think the story that we try to tell, the story of the subscription economy, is really best told through stories of the companies that are going through this. And so I wanted to make sure there's a lot of time for that, but just to kind of reflect on the last time, since the last time we came out here and talked about this, and Michael was mentioning this. Michael said, look, now that you start thinking about subscriptions, you start paying attention to it. Right, you start seeing it all around you. It's one of those things where you start cluing into it, you start spotting it everywhere, and that's definitely true. And what we're seeing now is this whole vision that we painted used to be a vision of the future, and now it's more of a description of the present. And I think there's really two things that are driving that today. And when we reflect on the companies we talk to, our customer base, who's signing up, right? They really bring out these two things. And the first thing is really, Michael touched on this too, so you really forecast a lot of what I wanted to talk about, is the customer, right? Us as, if you think about customers, consumers of stuff, and you think about your own lives, and you think about the things that you're getting, you're starting to expect from the things that you use. It's very, very different than it was 3 to 4 years ago, right? We know some of the things that are different in the sense that we're all very informed consumers right now. We can go on the internet, we can look at things, we can educate ourselves before we walk into the store, right? We're all connected, right, through our social networks. So you hear about reputation, you hear about the quality of things, you hear about the buzz, about anything you use right before you actually engage with it. But it goes deeper than that. What you actually expect from the thing itself is really changing, right? You now expect the things you use to know a lot about you. You want it to watch your behavior, adapt to it, learn to it. You want to be personalized and customized to your experiences, right? Every one of our phones is customized to our needs. You want your cars to be customized to your needs. You want your SaaS applications to be customized to your need. You're just expecting that now. You're expecting the things that you use to know a lot about you. You're also expecting to get better and better, right? And so you expect the SaaS applications that you use to be upgraded every few months, every few quarters, every few years. You expect the phone. You talk about the iPhone 6. You expect the next phone. You expect the next car. You expect the next push to the set-top box at home, right? You expect the next upgrade to the application. And we're all being trained to expect these things, and this never happened before, right? You expect things to be always be real time now. You want immediate gratification. All this talk of drones delivering things to you, right? It's because we want things now. Why wait 2 days? Why wait 3 days anymore? And you want things to be really, really memorable, right? You want these unique experiences. And so what we're finding is customers' expectations of the things that you use are changing. You guys all know this in your personal lives, and when companies pause and reflect on that about their customer base, they're realizing that shipping a product is not sufficient anymore, right? Because a product can't meet the needs of today's consumer, right? A product is one size fits all, right? Any color that you want, as long as it's black, it's static, it doesn't update itself, right? And so it doesn't deliver on the needs of the expectations. At the same time, and the Internet of Things really brings this out, right? The ability to connect all your devices now to the Internet, right, with these sensors and these Wi-Fi connections, changes everything. And so we're having conversations. General Motors is now a customer. People are like, well, why is General Motors a customer? Well, every car that comes out of the assembly line in the next 24 months is going to have a 4G connection in it. And this isn't just General Motors. This is Toyota, this is BMW, this is Audi, this is everybody. And at the same time, where they're fretting about the millennials no longer buying cars, or at least pushing their car purchases out, there's a very reasonable chance that car sales are actually going to be declining in the next 5-10 years. And so their revenue base is shrinking. People are buying less and less cars. But they're saying, look, if every one of our cars is coming out with a 4G device, it allows us to reinvent our relationship with the customer. We should be the ones that should be selling Spotify, right? We should be the ones that should be selling Netflix. We should be the ones that can monetize all these applications that are in the car. But we could also build a better relationship. Today, we actually don't even know who our customers are because it's our dealer's relationship. It's not our relationship. But if there's a 4G connection in the car, and people are walking around with a GM ID or an OnStar ID in this case, right? They're going to use the OnStar brand for this. And the OnStar brand can represent a lot more than when you get in an accident, you can push a button and somebody will be dispatched to you, right? It could start representing your entertainment that's inside the cars. It could start representing a higher value service where, look, your car actually knows when it needs to be serviced, right? Why sit there? Why not just schedule the appointment for you, right? Have a car waiting for you when you drop it in. In fact, in 5 or 10 years, if you believe that cars are going to be self-driving, right, why even sell you the car at all, right? Why not just give you a new car every 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is, and when the car breaks down, we'll just send another self-driving car to you, and we'll take this one away and refurbish it as needed. And so this is where the world is going. This is where the world is going. So at the same time, the consumer expectations are different. They have a higher level of expectations. Customers or companies are also finding that, with today's technology, with the cloud, with mobile, with the Internet of Things, with sensors, they can radically transform who they are and actually be a much more innovative and interesting company. So instead of fretting that car sales are going to decline, this is actually our chance to reinvent ourselves, build deeper relationships with our customers, and leapfrog into the future. And they're all really, really excited about this. A lot of times people talk about startup companies having an advantage because they're agile and so on and so forth. But with this revolution, we're finding that the big companies are coming to the table with a really, really strong asset. And that asset is their customer base, right? They actually do have a deep, deep customer base. And if the name of the game in the future is not shipping units, right? If the name of the game in the future is not counting how many iPads that you ship, and the name of the game in the future is saying, well, how many Apple IDs do I have? And how do I monetize those Apple IDs, right? And how much revenue am I getting per Apple ID? And what is my strategy of deepening that relationship and deepening the revenue? Then companies coming in with established customer bases have an advantage. The question now is, can they transform themselves, right? And think and rethink about their business, including the metrics, the supply chains, the value chains, not away from saying, look, name of the game for me is to ship as many cars, pens, laptops, whatever it happens to be, cameras in your case, right? And saying, the name of the game is how many customers do I have, right? How many customers do I have? How do I build deep relationships with the customers? That becomes my competitive moat, right? To allow my differentiations to relationship with my customers. And how do I let that be the basis for my business model and my company in the 21st century? This is what we're working with our customers on, right? So that is the story of General Motors, right? Schneider just signed on a customer. If you look at Schneider's 10K, their annual report, they're talking about 25% of the revenue is already recurring revenue. So the CEO sees the future and is driving this 27 billion euro company into that future. Another company is Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers just signed as a customer, the original membership organization, but they're saying, the membership was just a way of sending these recipes and these foods. But that's not what consumers want anymore, right? Consumers have a deep relationship with their health. They're wearing these wearables. If our brand represents health, if our brand represents wellness, then the definition of that is changing very, very rapidly. Again, we have a worldwide membership base that we can bring to the game, but we've got to radically transform ourselves to be relevant, right, in today's modern age. Otherwise, we'll slide into relevancy. And so that's the context of what we see is going on in the world and the conversations that we're having. I'd be glad to sort of field questions about that, but that's the lens I wanted to just kind of put out there. As you listen to Swann stories, as you listen to Deloitte stories, right? The story of the future is going to be about the customer. The future is going to be about building deep relationships with the customer. The future is about understanding the entire experience that you want to build for the customer, take them on a journey with you over time. And what that really implies for how you reinvent your company to embrace that future. Right? Which one of you guys want to go first?
I've got a bit of a question.
Sure.
At the last briefing you gave us, you briefly touched on business-to-business subscription services. I was just wondering what further thoughts you've had on that as the next growth area. We sort of recognise business-to-customer opportunities. Is it the same on the business-to-business?
Well, there's two ways of interpreting the question. One is our customer base sells both to businesses and consumers, right? And this whole subscription economy trend transcends both, right? And Ben's company even sells to small businesses and the high net worth owners. Right, and so it's actually B2B2C at the same time, and we're seeing more and more of these. We call these B2Any models, where if you look at Box sells to individuals, but Box also sells to Procter & Gamble at 20,000 seats. Right, and so you can have a service out there that sells to both. And so the concepts we talked about truly are universal to both types of businesses. The other way to interpret your question is a channel. Right, and so if you look at GM, does GM sell to the dealers or does GM sell to ultimately the end customer? If you look at consumer packaged goods companies like Nike or even Coke, does Coke sell to the consumer or does Coke sell to the bottler or the restaurant? Right, does Nike sell to the retail store or does Nike sell to the ultimate consumer? And what we're finding is that in today's world, however you define your customer, whether it's a person or a company, you can have a direct relationship with the customer now. And that's actually really, really important. To use a B2C example, we're all walking around with Amazon IDs and Google IDs and Apple IDs, and those IDs define our relationship with these companies. And those companies are able to use that relationship, understand more about you, and broaden their relationship with you, right? But we're not walking around with a Nike ID, a Coke ID, and a L'Oreal ID. That's one of the transformations that we're seeing that they have to change, which is how do I truly understand who my end customer is, and how do I build a direct relationship with them? And what does that mean for my channel? If you do have a channel today, how do they participate in that going forward? We're seeing companies saying, no, we want the channel to be side by side with us. I mean, the car companies not getting rid of the dealers, or they're going to be side by side in that journey. And we're also seeing companies saying, look, we can easily see 5 years from now that our channel will become relevant. And it really depends on a case-by-case basis.
I think just building on that concept, one of the other ways of looking at that question is can you do only simple sales via subscription, a product or a service, or can you do complex sales? Business to business tend to be, or can be, much more complex sales. And our experience is that you can actually sell quite sophisticated, complicated service sale as a subscription. And for us, that was one of the big hurdles, and we'll tell the story a little later, but that was one of the things, that was one of the great unknowns we had going into this was, would people buy accounting and business advice as a subscription? And the answer to the question is yes.
Yeah. I mean, why don't you tell the story? Just to put some context behind that.
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting, Tien, you talk about relationships, because Deloitte Private's always been a relationship company. Many of our clients are across multi-generations, so the relationship has always been key to us. We didn't know that's what we were doing though when we shifted to this subscription economy, but we have reinvented our business. It actually started, and Sholto, William have heard some of this story before, so we've a bit of old ground, but it started for us with a piece of research that we did 2 or 3 years ago called, part of our Building a Lucky Country series called Digital Disruption, Short Fuse, Big Bang, and we mapped the entire Australian economy, industry by industry, and the degree to which, that industry was yet to be digitally disrupted, the timing of disruption and the degree of the disruption they were likely to experience. It was a really good piece of thought leadership that got a lot of airplay, quoted in Parliament, a lot of media coverage. But the key takeaway for us, or the key takeaway from it, was that 1/3 of the Australian economy was at risk inside 3 years. But when you looked at the industries that were most at risk, one of them was professional services, our own industry. And when you look at what Deloitte Private does, so we look after high net worth individuals, not-for-profits and small to medium enterprises. Our services, that accounting and tax heritage of ours, was actually already being disrupted. The likes of Zuora and MYOB and their move to the cloud just fundamentally changed both the way people were consuming at least their accounting software, but also the expectation that created around, well, my accountant can see my books online and therefore will look at them every month and keep me up to date. But the reality was that if that's all you did, if you just embraced that, you just create additional overhead and people weren't prepared to pay anything additional for it. So we could have reacted in one of various ways. We could have embraced it. First of all, we could have ignored it, that shift. We could have just embraced the technologies, which is a way a lot of people are reacting to it. Or we could do what we eventually decided to do, which was go back and look at, well, what should that client experience be like? What should the relationship that Deloitte Private has with its clients really be like? And if you look at the accounting, with no disrespect to my colleagues, but if you look at the accounting process, it really hasn't changed much since desktop accounting came in perhaps in the 80s. And if you're even less generous, probably in 100 years it hasn't really changed. At the end of the year, we get the veritable shoebox and a disc, and we recreate the year. That's just undo all the work that was done during the year to recreate the year, to then tell someone 9 months after the fact where they were 9 months ago at the end of the previous financial year. And the information is in a format, set of compliance statements that you probably can't read, and it's too late for you to do anything with it. And by the way, we'll tell you how much it costs when we finish rather than before we start. So we reinvented that and said that's not much of a service. How do you actually do it in a way that people can get value from it? And the answer was to reinvent it and say it shouldn't be about getting information into the system. It shouldn't even be about getting insight from that information. It should be about being able to take action on the insights that we generate. So we, to cut a long story short, we designed out a lot of steps of the process that weren't adding value. We built an ecosystem of partners to actually deliver a product that is fundamentally different, a dashboard that gives our clients a live view of their business. We take over all of the bookkeeping, so from procure to pay right through, and that removes friction and handoff between bookkeeper and owner, or bookkeeper and accountant. They get their management accounting done at the end of the month, their compliance accounting at the end of the year. And very importantly, we package in to the subscription a series of advice meetings where 4, 12 times a year, we actually meet with that business owner to say, here's what the numbers say. We can rely on the information because we've curated it. Here's what it's saying about your business. And here's the actions that you can take. And we can do that because we own the process from beginning to end, because we give them the live dashboard, and because we give them that deep management reporting, benchmarking, and advice. And it's sort of really added a layer to that relationship. It's made it a much more sticky relationship and a much better experience.
More frequent meetings?
Actually, they choose the frequency, and that's part of, it's all in a subscription price. So rather than being reluctant to actually pick up the phone to their accountant, they know that they're going to get a monthly meeting with us, or whatever frequency they choose, and it's packaged into the price they're already paying. And they pay a monthly subscription. It's pre-billed, and it's proving extremely popular.
Could you sell this to a government minister, perhaps?
We can sell it to virtually anybody as long as we don't audit them. But it is, it's proving to be it's proving to add a layer of or a vastly improved customer experience to what was already a deeply relationship-based business.
I mean, if you think about it, it's professional services, so it's obviously a relationship-based business. But if you sort of think about your relationship with your lawyer, your accountant, right? The relationship always feels weird because you always it's charged on an hourly basis. It's disconnected from the value, right? And so whenever you call your accountant, you call your tax advisor, you call your lawyer, you know that you're on the clock, and it actually creates friction in whether you want to do that. And then afterward, you're like, okay, I just spent 2 hours and I spent $1,500. Did I get value from that, right? It's a disconnected relationship. And so there's actually friction, and you actually wind up using their services less. And that doesn't make any sense, right? The whole point is they're the experts, and you should be tapping into this. We had the same, it was inspired by what Ben did. And when we actually met with our lawyer, our outside counsel in Silicon Valley, Fenwick, and West, and met with Ted over there, I said, Ted, you should do this. Right, because we hesitate to call you. My finance team hesitates to call you because they always think about it as going to be worth the money, and you're actually not seeing a lot of our own internal issues. So he actually did it. He actually launched a subscription service in the legal profession. And I just had lunch with Ted a few weeks ago, and he says this has changed everything. He's got about 7 clients right now trying out the service, and he says I'm getting calls from them a lot more than I used to. And it's not a bad thing, right? Because it all nets out to be the same. But I'm actually there. I can give them advice, and it leads to other follow-on services, right? Because we don't have to worry about Ted being on the clock, right? We just pay our monthly fees, and he does all the basic services. But then we feel very free to call him. It's led to a much deeper relationship with the client as a result. And then Ben's company is going way beyond that. They're not just saying, okay, but if we're going to do that, then let's go even deeper, right? Let's give you higher advisories, and all of a sudden there's a base subscription fee, and the relationship changes, right? Because now, as a vendor, you're incented to lower the cost of those implementations or those services and do it most efficiently as possible, which is better for everybody. But you're also incented to deliver more value, right? Because now that if you're going to be paying me whatever it is, $20,000 a month, $5,000 a month. I got to make sure that I deliver more value than that, so you're incented to actually go deeper. And so you're hearing their conversation saying, well, let's not just look at backwards reporting. Let's actually leapfrog other advisory services, and let's give them insight, right? Let's give them strategic thinking. And the relationship just winds up being much, much more deeper.
If you're talking about changing the relationship, is it necessary for everyone to be converted to 4G and internet connections to actually work? Hoping we can find one day. Could you not have done it on a subscription basis 100 years ago? We'll give you so many quill pens and so many consultations and top hats per month for so many gimmicks. It's necessary to have the electronic connection as part of the deal.
I wouldn't say that it's necessary, but technology today allows you to do different things. It allows you to know what your customers are doing. Right? If you're using a service at Salesforce.com, we knew our customers, creating opportunities, creating reports. Are they using the application? I think last time this year I told the story of LifeTech, which is this gene sequencing device, right? And the first step of using the cloud was not to build a deeper relationship. It was just to lower the cost of these devices, take all the processors out. You know, it's a gene sequencing device. You put a few drops of blood on a chip, you pop the chip in. You know, half an hour later, you get your gene sequence. You know, these things, the price of it just comes down, and it's pretty amazing. They took all the chips out, dropped the price of the device by 90% because it's mostly the price is most, the cost is mostly the processors. Internet enabled, it shipped to Amazon, and their marketplace exploded. They're selling thousands of these things as a result. But what they said was that was just the first step. The more interesting step is now we actually know who's using which devices how often, and we can actually see this, and we can actually take that feedback back into what we do and build a better product, build a better relationship. So I wouldn't say that it's necessary, but you know, it gives you a wider set of tools to actually do things with that relationship, provide more value, get more insight.
To back that up, Sam, I think even if you look at a product like this, which is relatively easy to understand, we could have packaged up, maybe not the outputs, but you could package up the meetings, you could package up the frequency as a subscription. We could have done that 100 years ago for a few guineas. But the reality is that technology
Would have been a lot of guineas 100 years ago.
and worth it at the price. What technology though has allowed us to do, and the shift to the cloud or cloud-based accounting, really means that we can see the data, to your point, we can understand what's going on, whereas historically we would have had to have gone, looked at the information, brought ourselves up to speed. It would have been a much more, or there would have been much more friction in the process. And therefore, the technology has allowed us to take friction out of it, make it much more efficient, and therefore much more affordable for a client.
Well, it's just bizarre that MYOB took so long to go onto the cloud, where you had to send your files and stuff physically across your account in order, and hopefully your account was on the same version as MYOB.
Well, and as a result, we've had every version of MYOB on our server going back to 1980, whatever, to make sure that we could service our clients. But you're actually seeing now, we just did a piece of research, Deloitte Access Economics and Salesforce just did a joint piece of research looking at the SME market. And one of the things that just sticks in my mind is that we're now at about a third, the average SME does about a third of their back office functions digitally, and increasingly on the cloud. So it is. I mean, that number, I had to actually ring the guys and check that number just sticks in my mind. That transition is happening so quickly, and cloud has gone from the 8th most important thing that they think about a year ago or 2 years ago to the 3rd. It's a great piece of research actually that's anyone interested in the space should have a look at. It's got some really interesting insights like that, and that transition is just critical to a lot of the things to change in the nature of the relationship.
So Ben, just in terms of pricing and costs of your subscription services as opposed to your previous non-subscription services, how different is it? How difficult was it to work out what would give you a bottom line as well as reducing the price?
They are very different services. So where we own, because we own procure to pay and management reporting and year-end compliance, we don't have, there's no handover between a bookkeeper and the owner or the owner and us. It's seamless. That friction means we can take a lot of cost out. Or the removal of that friction means we can take a lot of cost out. But we can now provide our services, so Deloitte, Big Four services, into the startup market. So we can be cost effective in that startup space, just because of the design of this product, and still make a margin that is reasonable to us. But the quality of the product is, I would argue, is probably also better. But that transition to, and I've said to a few people who are looking at doing similar things, that transition from post-billing timesheets to automated billing, rebilling, subscription based. It's not based on the amount of time you put in. It's actually based on the value the client gets. That's a big transition for an organisation, and it's one that a lot of organisations. Selfishly, I'm thinking about the Australian economy, but in the Australian economy, there's a lot of businesses that are going to have to think about how do you align what you do to value to the customer much more directly than input to the process. How do you marry those two? How do you actually understand, well, what value do we want to create for the client? What value do they perceive? And then how do we reverse engineer what we do to deliver that and still make a margin? As opposed to, how do I create my widget? What margin do I think I can put on it? That's what I'll sell it for. That's the fundamental change that organisation need to go through. It's what we had to do, and that was probably the hardest part. The second hardest part was, not saying this just because Greg and Tien are in the room, but actually our systems weren't built to think about subscription billing or monthly recurring revenue or customer acquisition cost in those kinds of ways. They were built to say how many hours did you put on the clock times a rate, and then you produce million good. We couldn't innovate. We've changed our pricing since we launched. We've been able to change our pricing 3 times, Liz. Since June. We could experiment with new pricing and new pricing style. Historically, there's no way we could cope with that.
So how much have you expanded your customer base into your added startups, for example?
So we, I won't give you customer numbers, but 50% of the customers that we put on to Deloitte Private Connect are completely new to Deloitte Private. So it's about a 50% changeover. In fact, it's slightly less than 50% existing. It's been a very interesting process for us.
So you see it as a sales proposition as well.
Do you know what? We get a lot of, again, I never thought I'd be able to say this, we get a lot of interest through our website of people wanting to sign up. So they read an article on Digital First and then come to our website, and we don't even have to pay Shelter's
Subscription.
If you've done it on subscription, you already have your money.
Since June, you're saying you've got nearly 50% more customers.
No, not 50% more. 50% of the customers we put on are completely new to us.
Oh.
So not really customers out for them.
Well, some would always have been new over the years. Are you saying a higher proportion of them are new, totally new?
We actually thought we'd convert more of our existing. We thought we'd convert. Our intention was in this first year to convert our existing customer base, or a proportion of our existing customer base, to Deloitte Private Connect. We weren't really chasing new customers, but that has come actually from people approaching us as opposed to us actually going out and.
So how many of them are startups?
I don't actually have that number to hand, but we're working with a number of the big incubators. Thank you. So I'm not sure if I'm allowed to name them.
I think you can say the hub.
Yeah, so the Hub and 1 or 2 others, which
Only 2 others. And the other 2.
And the hub's not exactly integrated.
So and that's very interesting. You know, they're actually packaging that into their investment process because they know they get the reliability of the information. It's timely, it's accurate in a way that you just wouldn't get in any other way, and it allows the startup owner, the idea owner, to focus on their idea rather than on accounting, which they shouldn't have to think about.
So given you've got all this traction you weren't expecting, have you, obviously must have sat down and really thought what the Deloitte Private's potential market size is and who it should be targeting? Kind of seen this with KPMG in the UK as well, thinking about going down to SME. Is this now something you're going to do, or are you going to keep focusing on the ones you have? How big are you going?
That's something we keep assessing almost on a monthly basis.
So
this month we're staying in our heritage, high net worth heritage space. We think that's where there's plenty of white space there for us. But the very interesting part about it is that the way we built it and the fact that we've done it as an ecosystem, or we've done it with partners like Zuora and Salesforce and a number of others that scale, means that it is a decision we get to make. We're not constrained by, we haven't got any part of our ecosystem that constrains us from making that call. It's actually a strategy decision It's not dictated by our systems environment.
Obviously, a Deloitte Private Connect Lite, let's say.
Or maybe under another brand,
Yeah.
who knows.
One question here, of course, is okay. You're a high net worth, which means that you're someone outside the purview of someone here. How far down the scale might we be moving? Could you be getting down to the level of a single proprietor of a newsagent's shop in the retail shopping centre space, or would you need an outfit somewhat bigger than that?
So, if you look at the types of organisations that many high net worth individuals invest in, they fall into a couple of categories. So they'll have a trading business that's probably where they made their money. That's not a Deloitte Private Connect client. But many of the businesses they invest in are maybe not news agencies, but they'll be very, very small, single-digit million turnover type businesses. That is something that was of personal interest to them that they've invested in, and they're perfect for Deloitte Private Connect. So I think Sholto's question is really driven off the fact that we're actually serving a lot of SMEs now, but we're serving them because they're connected to high net worth individuals. We're serving not-for-profit organisations, many of whom are in that SME scale. But those are two strategic decisions we've made to focus there rather than expand it to all SMEs for the moment.
If I could key off that, you asked a good question about, is a 4G connection really necessary? I think Geoff's story of Swann really brings it out in terms of, we used to be selling cameras, but if we can connect them to a Wi-Fi or 4G connection, it really changes the relationship.
You do all sorts of different things.
So why don't you spend a few minutes and describe what Swann does?
Yeah, so unlike Ben's business, we're not a service business, we're not a relationship business. In fact, up until about a year or so ago, we didn't really know who our customers were. We were very much focused on transactional sales. We'd sell a box into a retailer like a Harvey Norman or a Dick Smith, and the customer would go in and buy it off the shelf. So we were really disconnected.
Security equipment for the home.
Security equipment. So CCTV, closed circuit television cameras, with very much an emphasis on the closed, because it was a very much a closed ecosystem. That all started to change with really the event of smartphones, where you could actually start to view video from a CCTV camera on your smartphone. So that's really the first step, if you like, towards the Internet of Things and the things that will actually impact our business moving forward. So we had very much a transactional model. About a year and a half ago, we decided to actually think very carefully about, what is our business? What business are we in? And we said we were selling CCTV cameras, we were selling DVRs, but actually what we were trying to sell was security. And what our customers were buying, they were trying to buy peace of mind. They're trying to buy peace of mind because either they had a fear of burglary or intrusion in the home, or they had already previously been burgled. So they were buying a system to try and alleviate and solve that problem. But that system, that piece of hardware, in its entirety didn't really solve the problem. It just allows people to record an event, to record someone breaking into their home. It doesn't prevent it, and it only records it in real time, but you don't view it in real time. So maybe you'd come home at the end of the day to find your house had been burgled, you had a record of that, you had a great picture of the burglar, but it doesn't solve things. It doesn't make your life really any easier. It doesn't make you feel more comfortable. And they were really looking for security. So we looked and asked the question, what business do we want to be in, and what's going to affect our industry? We know that security is popular. In fact, I think everyone around this table, if you leave home in the morning and there's no one home, you lock your door, you're a security consumer because you've locked your door. So all of those people have a need and can be marketed to if we can give them the right service. So then we thought, well, what is it? What's going to change? How is that the nature of our business going to change? How can we offer a sense of security, a sense of peace of mind? What can we do? And we decided that the technology was evolving at such a fast rate that things were possible this year and last year to a greater extent that were not possible 4 or 5 years ago. So we decided that we had to develop a hardware ecosystem, we had to develop a gateway into the home, and we had to develop a range of sensors that could be placed around the home, which was still very much focused on our hardware selling model. But that in its
it itself was really not appealing for a consumer because it's just another hardware sale. It doesn't give them that sense of security. So we thought, well, what are the things that we can offer alongside the hardware? How can we make you feel comfortable? Let me give a couple of examples. It's probably easy to illustrate by a couple of examples rather than anything else. We're all sat around the table today. How do we know that our dishwasher that we set off this morning with last night's dirty dishes is not leaking and pouring water onto our kitchen floor? How do we know someone hasn't broken a window in our home, whether it's kids playing football in the street or someone trying to break into our home? More importantly, how do we know that our smoke detector, which is a great device, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, they save lives. When you're at home at night, middle of the night, smoke detector goes off, you get your family out of your home. It's just saved your life. That's great when you're home, but what happens when the home is empty and that smoke detector goes off? Do you go home at 5:30 to find out you've got a pile of smouldering ruins? It's not much value to you. So are there things that we can do around those sort of things where we could monitor, capture those things happening in your home that are important to you, offer that as a service to you, and send that information to you, to send to your smartphone to say, hey, you've got a leak at home. Hey, someone's just broken a window. Hey, your smoke alarm has just gone off. And that's what we're doing. We're basically taking those kind of services and offering them in a subscription platform for very, very low cost. What we're doing that is also very different is we're doing it on a pay-as-you-go basis. So you can jump in and jump out as and when you want. So if you look at companies like, say, ADT or Chubb Security, yes, thank you. If you look at Chubb or ADT, what they do is they monitor your home on a 24/7 basis, 365 days a year. And you have to sign up to a contract that's typically 2 years to maybe 3 years in length. And it's a bit like a cellular phone contract. If you want to move house or you want to get out of that contract early, you have to pay the contract out. And it costs you typically $40, $50, $60, $70 if you want video cameras installed. So it's pretty expensive. And maybe you don't need it all of the time. So what we're doing with our systems, and this is really where Zuora comes in, and it's part of the beauty of Zuora is this flexibility, is to say, well, you know, most of the time I've got someone at home, I don't need that security. But hey, it's Easter weekend, I'm going to go away for a long weekend, there's going to be no one home, I would like my home to be monitored just for that period. So with our system, you can go into our portal, select those dates from, say, 9 o'clock Good Friday morning through to, say, 10 p.m. Easter Monday, and your home will be monitored for that period at low cost. So we believe that that will be a very attractive proposition for our subscribers. And we believe we're very different. It's going to be a very different model to someone like ADT, where you pay them $40, $50 a month. You never see them. If everything goes well at home, you don't have any contact with them. You come to the end of your contract at 2 or 3 years, and you think, well, do I really want to renew this? I've spent several $100s over the last couple of years. Did I really get value for money? How do I know they were monitoring my home? Whereas our system, because it's connected with home automation features in your phone, you can be using that system every day. We believe it will be much, much stickier than anything else that's out there. So you will use our app not only for security, but to turn lights on. Did I leave the iron plugged in to that socket? Is it going to be hot when I get home? I can go turn that off. I'm going to be home a couple of hours later tonight. I'll set the central heating or the cooling to come on an hour and a half later. All of that is controllable by your phone. Oh, my son's just come home from school early. I've got a push notification to my phone. That's value. And we believe there's a lot of stickiness there. If you're using the app 3, 4, 5, 10, maybe even 20 times a day, and part of that app is security, you won't think twice about renewing that subscription, whether it's on a monthly basis, a 3-monthly basis, or a 12-monthly basis. So that, in essence, is what we're doing at Swann.
Now, you started, that's an amazing story, and I might use this later, but if you get into a time machine, you go sort of far into the future, 5 years, 10 years, and you walk into your home, I suspect you just won't recognize it, right? Just the way innovation's going to go. And you hear some of these stories, you can just sort of see that. But you started off saying, we never knew where our customers were. Yeah, we're a product company. We sell through retail channels. And now you've got this direct relationship, this app that your customers use. You care about churn, you care about renewals. I mean, what is that transition like as a company?
It's a very interesting transition because, in reality, just to clarify a little bit further, I said we didn't know who our customers were. We did know who some of our customers were when they called up our help desk because they had problems. And those were the only customers we knew about. That's the only time we got customer information. So we had only the negative side of things. But when we look at our system moving forward, you actually have to subscribe. You have to provide your address, billing details. We know exactly what kind of products you bought, what products you're using, how often you use the product. And we can also look at use patterns in there. So we can see that, whether it's something simple like someone is using our back-to-base professional monitoring services, 3 or 4 times a month, maybe we should then contact them and say, well, instead of paying the sort of 2 daily rate or the weekly rate, why don't you subscribe to a monthly rate or a 12 monthly rate, and we will give you a discount. So that suddenly enriches the relationship, and it's based on real usage data. It's based on their pattern of behavior. If someone's only using it once a year, we're not going to try and upsell them to sign up for a year of security monitoring. But if they're using it on a frequent basis, we can do that. We can also engage with them in terms of when we have new products and new features that we'd like to sell to them that we think could be useful in their particular environment. So if we have a new product, a new camera, a new sensor, a new device, we know who they are, so we can engage with them and offer them some kind of incentive to buy if they want to. So that's really going to change our model completely. And that sort of depth of relationship moving forward will completely transform our business.
Just sending an email just saying you have a new camera which will get you the miscreant in colour instead of in black and white.
Something like that, as simple as that, yeah.
Was this strategic rethink prompted by any kind of disruption to your business or kind of perceived threat, or how did it all come about?
There was no perceived threat at the time. There was no disruption, but it will happen. It is just a question of time. So it was really a case of examining where we were, recognizing the things that were changing in the industry, the things that were possible and going to be possible over the next year or 2 years that weren't possible 3 or 4 years ago, that would affect our business. And if we did not act, someone else would be eating our lunch in 2 or 3 years' time. So in some ways we were forced to act, but we've done it in a timely manner. We haven't done it as a reaction to, we've suddenly lost business or some other product has come on the market. It's been very much with the concept of things are changing, we need to change, we need to be proactive about it.
What do you think about Apple's push into the market with the HomeKit and all that? I mean, is there an opportunity or is that a threat?
We see it as mainly an opportunity. Partly Apple wants to sell a lot more MFI chips because they're about $1.50, so if that goes into hardware, there's significant hardware revenue there. They also want devices to be compatible with their iPhone and their systems. The problem with the strategy from Apple is very much it's focused on a home automation focus. We're focused on a security-centric approach, and there's a big difference. We don't believe that people will pay on a recurring revenue basis significant amounts of money for turning the lights on and off remotely. That will have to be a freebie. We don't believe people will pay significant amounts of money for cranking up the heating on their thermostat. Yeah, but they will pay for security, they will pay for monitoring, they will pay for things that are life critical or life threatening. And that's typically an area that Apple will stay shy of. So I know a lot of companies that developed Internet of Things medical devices, again working very closely with Apple for an app that controls the medical device, but they want to put a brick wall, very, very tough brick wall between the medical device and what they're doing in terms of their app and supporting it, because they don't want the liability of having some kind of health issue with the device. They don't want the liability of having some kind of security issue with the home. That's really our core business, so we're happy to take that on board.
Do you want to be compatible with other Internet of Things companies, or do you
Some things yes, and some things no. So when it comes to things like, say, a simple door sensor or a flood sensor, it really doesn't matter whose device you use. But if you want to have, say, a door lock or a security camera, which is really very much a security-centric sensor or device compared to a home automation type device, there we want to lock that down more tightly so that we have control. So all of our communication with our devices, our platform, whether we stream video to our cloud platform, all the communications are encrypted with 128-bit AES encryption. So it is a security system. It's not a toy, it's not a home automation system. And we were very much aware, before we even started this project, that there had been a lot of things like baby cams that had been hacked, a whole bunch of camera feeds where the video streams are not encrypted. We didn't want that. We are selling a security system and that peace of mind.
Can I just go back to the recognising the kind of looming strategic threat? How that realisation came about, whether it was management, the board, kind of staff up input, like how did you come to that epiphany?
Okay, the CEO of the company does not have a technology background, but he has a very good commercial background. We had experienced very good growth in Swann over a period of 3 or 4 years, and he invited me in to have a discussion about, well, what were the threats, what were the opportunities, was there something that was missing, how could we do better, and it really came out of those discussions. So it was a strategic discussion about what the future will be, and how does that impact on what we're doing today.
Geoff, why do you think your product has appeal now beyond Australia into the global markets? Why do you think why do you think you're
why does it have appeal? I think it has appeal because we all live somewhere. We all have a house. We all have goods, chattels, friends, family that we want to protect in one way or another. Today, about 70% of our business is North American based. So actually, Australia is really quite a small market for us. I've been on tour with all of the major retailers over the last 2 or 3 months. All big household names in North America and household names here. And everyone's really been blown away with what we're doing. They see it and they describe it as, this is disruptive. What you're doing is very different because you're charging a low price, you are offering a great deal of flexibility to opt in and opt out, to turn it on and to turn it off only and when you need it. And the compatibility of our devices and our ecosystem is also very well matched with some of our competitors in terms of, we could take a door sensor from another third party and make it work with our system quite easily. So you're not wholly locked into a Swann ecosystem.
And will anything change in terms of what's the hardware that's all bundled with this to make this work? Obviously, it's needed in-house.
Yeah.
Will anything change in that respect?
In terms of hardware, we believe we've future-proofed it as far as we can go. So we think it's unreasonable and unacceptable for the consumer to have to buy, say, a central gateway or a system for the home, and maybe 2 or 3 years have to throw it out because something new's come along and something better's come along. So we've future-proofed it as far as we can. If we haven't future-proofed it enough, we think the best way around that is to actually offer a different kind of subscription where if you're prepared to sign up for a longer period, we will continually renew your hardware, maybe on a 3-year basis. So that opens up, again, very different subscription models that we're not putting in place to launch, but we think within a 2-year period, it may be appealing to say, well, if you're willing to sign up instead of for a month or so, sign up for a year, then maybe we'll give you this hardware in a subsidized way or free of charge.
So it's not something you're offering yet? It's
not yet, no.
And what have you done specifically to secure the system? I mean, there's that website in the news the past couple of days with 70,000 cameras, most of which have the default username and password, which is how they've been able to hack in. Do you, I mean, from the very basic, simple thing, do you force your users to change the password? Do you randomize things? How did, what else was beyond that? Have
as
you done?
part of the registration process and the setup process, you have to link Wi-Fi cameras to our gateway or hub, and during that process, you have to change the password.
Such a simple thing that most other companies don't seem to.
A lot of companies just don't do that, and that's a very simple step. That's almost a no-brainer.
So, what other things?
Well,
Tell us.
The video stream itself and all the commands are encrypted, whereas a lot of IP cameras that are out there today, they're not encrypted by any news at all. They're really open. They're broadcasting like a a terrestrial TV broadcast. It's that easy to hack into those systems. All of our data streams are encrypted, and the storage on the cloud, if we store video, because we obviously capture events and store video on the cloud, so if your house burns down or someone breaks in, you've got that record. It's independent of your residence.
Are you going to introduce any sort of two-factor authentication when you're logging in to see your streams online?
No, not at this stage. No. We don't feel that's needed at this stage.
Sure. I mean, it's not difficult, presumably, to implement, because Google's doing it, others are doing it. But,
I was wondering, have you connected the data online services like you use notifications that someone breaks in? It's pretty cool if someone broke in and send out like something to Airtasker to organise the visualising.
Yeah, you can actually do that. Sourcing security. You can actually do that. We actually have a very powerful rules engine built into the platform. It's a bit like an if this then that, but even more powerful. So you could actually do that. So you can automate it. You do get a number of contacts that are able to either just receive messages. They can be a basic user of the system. They can be an administrator of the system. And you nominate who they are, and you can change that at any point in time. What we do offer is that service whereby if you don't want to self-monitor, because you're busy, we're sat in a very nice lunch here today, we've all turned our smartphones off. If something happens at home, you don't find out about it till the end of the lunch and you turn it back on again. So what we're also offering is the ability to take some of those key messages and alerts and have them professionally monitored in an independent professional monitoring center for very low cost. So what they will do is, if it's, for example, your smoke alarm, they will try and call you or a couple of your nominated contacts. If they can't reach you, then they may be enabled to turn on cameras in your home if you want them to do so. You don't have to do so.
And contact emergency services.
And then if they see a fire, then they'll contact emergency services. If you said, no, I don't want you to access the video in my home, but if you get the smoke alarm and you can't reach me, then please call the fire brigade. And that's what they do. They have a standard.
Problem with false alarms?
False alarms, yeah. Smoke alarms can go off accidentally for various reasons. We have some other things to combat that, things like the cameras. We also have temperature sensors and heat sensors as well in our system. So it's really a combination of two events that will trigger, if you like, the calling of the fire brigade or the police.
Most of us have probably experienced the fire alarm which goes off and you're getting a little too enthusiastic about frying the corn.
That's when we're home.
These things are pretty. I just redid the house, so these sensors are pretty sophisticated. Like the sensor knows when somebody's home, or I got a 15-pound dog. The sensor actually could be set to a threshold where the 15-pound dog doesn't trigger, so you can just run around the home, and the sensor still knows nobody's home. It's pretty good.
But if you are cooking at home and you do accidentally set the smoke alarm off, the first thing they'll do is they'll actually call you before calling the fire brigade, and you can say, no, I'm sorry, I'm really done. I've just set fire to my steak or whatever that was.
So how popular has this been? How much take up?
We're just about to launch at CES, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas this year. We already have orders from US customers. We will launch in February in Australia and February in Europe.
When's it launching in the US?
It's actually launching at CES, so that's really if you like, the big announcement.
Yes.
Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, January 7th. And it will be on the shelves in January, so you'll be able to purchase it.
So where can you purchase it from?
So in Australia, you go to Harvey Norman, a JB Hi-Fi, a Dick Smith, maybe even a Bunnings. In the US, it would be a Walmart, Fry's, a Costco.
What about your existing customers? Because you're only going to get them through those retailers when they're buying new hardware. But is there any way you can kind of...
Well, when I said we didn't know who our customers were, about 18 months ago we decided to start to try and record those customer details by getting them to fill in a sort of guarantee or a warranty slip whereby we would give additional warranty. So we've captured that information for about the last year and a half. So we have a marketing database. We've sold, say, over the last couple of years, 2 to 3 years, about 1 million systems in the market. So that's 1 million potential users of the system, which we will contact and say, well, we could upgrade you, you know, to either new hardware or a combination of hardware, existing hardware and new hardware, to allow them to have this connected home kind of service. And that's really our plan to do so. But we also feel that the appeal of this particular ecosystem is very different to our traditional customer base. We think it's far more consumer friendly. It will appeal to a broader spectrum.
Traditional customer base might be hobbyists, right?
More comfortable. Yeah, traditionally hobbyists or people who have experienced a burglary. We also find that about 30% of our sales are to installers, professional installers, who are installing it for third parties, whereas our new system is very much self-installed. You don't need installers.
Sorry, that's 1 million in Australia, or is that in?
Well, that's in the US. It's in the US.
So what is somebody? Where you actually you pay a monthly fee for the service, and then you're additionally buying each individual sensor, or I guess what's the basics of it?
The way we've structured it, and it's subject to change, and again, that's the beauty of Zuora, that flexibility to either customize and offer different packages, or even to you know, partner with some of our retailers and do maybe a custom package with our retailers, or even potentially some revenue share in there as well. So our basic package is about $9.95 a month. This is US dollars. If you wanted to have, say, your smoke alarm and your carbon monoxide alarm monitored on a 24/7 basis, that would be about an additional $3.50 per month. And we have something really unique, and that is we can also do, fortunately it's not interesting for Australia, but we can do gunshot monitoring as well.
Ooh.
So we can actually detect the sound of a gunshot in your home, whether that's an accidental discharge or a home invasion. I mean, it works with all the guns that are used in gun crime, from 9mm Glocks through to sawn-off shotguns.
I'm sure you meant fortunately in Australia. Not unfortunately.
Oh, did I say unfortunately? Oh, yeah, fortunately, yeah. We're not there yet. And we do that for an additional $1.50 a month. So the beauty of that is, if you were unfortunate enough to experience a home invasion, or someone got shot in your family because a child had found a gun that was unsecured, immediately the emergency services will be called. And getting to your home, it could mean 2 or 3 minutes getting to your home faster, which is, in a life or death situation, if you're shot, is really quite critical.
And obviously it can distinguish between an actual gunshot and some Hollywood movie playing on your teeth.
Yeah, a couple of things. When you have a gunshot on, say Die Hard 46 or whatever, and Bruce Willis is letting off his guns, that's not a real gunshot. It's made by the Foley artists. Yeah. However, if you're watching, say, CNN, and some guy driving around, with an AK-47 in the back of a Toyota truck, and he starts firing, that is a real gun sound. But your TV compresses it so much that it won't actually affect the system. So it only works with real gunshots.
Geoff, it sounds as though it's not a long step for you to do home care monitoring.
It's not. So that is actually on our agenda, to offer some home care packages.
And again, a subscription.
On a subscription basis, yeah.
As well.
So what we've done with our base, we have 2 packages. We have a package that is aimed at the residential user, where you can monitor up to 4 properties. And the rationale behind that is your own home, your parents' home, and your wife's parents' home. And hopefully, if you're lucky enough, you've got a beach house or a holiday home somewhere else. So that's 4 under the residential package. Then we have a small to medium enterprise package, which is really up to, say, 30 or 40 different properties. So if you're a small franchisee operator, or you have a series of boutiques, you can also use this system. But we see that a lot of the sensors that we're putting into play work very well with senior care and aged care, and that's obviously one of the biggest growing markets. We have all the baby boomers coming through. I know a lot of people personally whose parents live either interstate or at least an hour's drive away from where they are living, and it would be great for them to get a notification that let's say we put a sensor on the fridge to say that the fridge door can open, because your mum is a creature of habit. She gets up every morning at 7 a.m, walks down, opens the fridge, takes the milk out to make a cup of tea. Come rain or shine, that's what she does. It suddenly gets to 7:45, a.m. or 7:30 or what, there's some deviation that you can set yourself. And she hasn't done so, then maybe we should send a push notification to say, hey, your mum appears not to have made a cup of tea this morning. Why don't you give her a call? And it could be you just call her and say, oh yeah, sorry, I was a bit busy. Or it could be something more serious. And you can couple that with things like fall sensors, other pendants, bed sensors. So that's our plan, is to also go into that market with a consumer offering. And it's an unfortunate fact of life that, it's a fortunate fact of life that we're living longer and we're healthier. It's unfortunate that we have less taxpayers paying into the system, so more and more of us are going to be living at home for longer on our own. And if we are lucky enough, and I take best in class, which is North America today, only about 12% of the aged or senior population actually gets to get into some kind of managed residential care facility. So that means 88% of the elderly population is living at home unassisted. So we think that's huge.
Best in class?
Best in class.
Yeah,
in terms of percentage-wise. It's about 8 to 10% here in Australia, 12% in North America.
Will the government subsidise that, or can those old folks afford that, the 88%?
Well, I think the government will afford it because it saves...
them
possible, yeah.
What percentage are living with family members, like my grandmother, for example?
I don't know, but the majority, I can tell you the vast majority are not living with a family member and are not living in a residential facility.
Thank you.
It's more than, say, 60 or 70%. So it's only a small step away to offer those kind of services, and we have some ideas on specific things that we want to implement that we believe will add value and tailor those packages to those kind of users.
And again, you're underwritten by Zuora's flexibility.
Absolutely, yeah. So it would take us, to create a new plan, it would take us 5-10 minutes.
So why the
it's
million?
really powerful.
Why the million people in the US? Like, weren't you collecting that data in Australia and Europe as well?
So I use the American figure because bigger numbers sound better. But in Australia, we have also for about the last year and a half been recording those customer details as well.
Can it be a reverse thing? You can be looking at poor old mum who hasn't got out of bed yet.
Yep.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we're looking at, for example, I don't want to get too technical, but a Zigbee bed sensor that detects when you get out of bed or a floor not by bed. Yeah.
Just for people that are scared of the rolling future, government accessing cameras and things like that.
Yeah.
I guess what would you say to alleviate any fears like that?
Well, there's a few issues there. I've mentioned already the video is encrypted, so that's a major step. Yeah. All of our servers and all of the data is either in Australia, Europe, or North America. So nothing is recorded in China or the Middle East or anywhere like that where there could be problems. I mean, you could envisage a situation where, say, for example, you're working for the US government or the Department of Defense in the USA, you've got this kind of home system or some kind of camera at home. A typical IP camera could be routed through China. Anyone could be looking in on that, and that something may happen at one point which may create some kickback in this industry. So we've really tried to think about that with a great deal of forethought and said, no, we're going to put all of our data centers in secure locations. Everything's going to be sort of onshore. If it's in America, it's in America. It doesn't go out.
Only the NSA can have a look, not the Chinese.
Only the NSA, of course. They'll have a look.
No, but just to clarify, Australian data in Australia, North American data in North America, European data in Europe.
And we're fully compliant with the Data Protection Acts and Privacy Acts in each of those regions. It's been an important part.
The NSA could have a look,
This is the NSA.
The US data.
In the US, yeah.
It would be through Five Eyes here.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, how has it changed the type of people that you employ and the way you design how you go to market?
It's changed a lot. Let me answer the market question first. It's changed a lot about the way we go to market. If you look at the traditional Swann website and the packaging and all of the marketing collateral, it's very much focused on, say, low value, high value but low cost.
Right.
Yeah, very much.
Traditional marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas if you look to our Swann One site, and I will send you the link, it's far more upmarket, it's more modern, much cleaner design. So if you go to the website, it looks more like a Nest site or an Atlas site or unlike the traditional Swann business. So we've changed that to marketing collateral, we've changed our marketing messages. The demographic that we're targeting is slightly different, and we know we have to do that. In terms of people, you know, it is a big cultural change, and cultural change for any organisation is difficult now. So it will take time for people to really get their heads around it. We are moving and transitioning from, you know, being 100% you know, one-off transactional revenue base to perhaps maybe 30, 40, 50% of our revenue within a 3-year time frame will be recurring revenue.
So on the go-to-market piece, because it's quite similar with Deloitte Private Connect, we've actually started getting people purchasing online, which is very different in the accounting space, like in professional services. And presumably that might mean you don't necessarily, you become a channel for sale rather than just the Harvey Normans, etc.
Yeah. So today, most of our business is direct through bricks and mortar retail. We do sell through, say, the likes of Costco online. Yeah, it's a big customer for us in North America. We do have our own Swann store where we sell online. We sell through Amazon and we sell through Newegg. My expectation is, again, within a 3-year period, the number of online sales will increase quite dramatically compared to where we are today.
Do you mean?
But that's typical, I think, for all bricks and mortar retail anyway. That's nothing shocking in the American.
When you say sales of the subscription, not the hardware, obviously.
The hardware.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm conscious of time. Sorry,
conscious of time.
Just one really quick one. Does this mean? Sorry, this is a basic one, but so you'll be selling directly the subscription to the service.
So the
the
user actually, when he takes the hardware home, the devices home, is directed to a web portal where they actually register, and they sign up essentially for a free service, and then they're offered a range of additional options and additional services at a paid subscription level, all of which can be cancelled in one service.
But in terms of the hardware, sorry, I think you mentioned this, but you obviously sell cameras and some other products, but this will work with other branded hardware from other vendors?
It will work with some branded products from other vendors. So,
in terms of sensors and all the other home automation related stuff that isn't additional to the security, are you now expanding your business into those hardware areas?
Yeah. So, for example, when we launch, actually a month after we launch, so it'll be February next year, we will be compatible with the Philips Hue lighting system. So everything that you can do with Philips Hue lights, you'll be able to do from our single app. We're integrating with QuickSet door locks because we're not a door lock manufacturer. That's a lot of heavy metal work. That's not our core business. So that's a third-party integration. We're also going to be integrating with the Nest thermostat next year. We also have our own thermostat that we've developed here in Australia, but there's large section of the population have already bought the Nest.
But you're doing yourself will be doing more than just cameras?
So we'll be doing more than just cameras. Yeah. So camera is only a small part of the ecosystem. In fact, there will be some users who buy our system and don't buy a single camera.
Yeah. But will you, these are all the things you're compatible with, but will you be manufacturing these things, I think is the question.
Yeah. What will be Swann branded that you're doing? That's
okay, so what will be core will be things like a door sensor, motion sensors, our hub, some other sensors, probably the aged care arena, but that's for probably about a year from now. Things like door locks, Philips, light bulbs, that's just not our core business, that will be third party.
Yeah.
So it will be works with, and is approved for use of business.
So would it be true to say you're going to be having a lot of integration because there's, you walk through Bunnings from one end to the other, which I do on peaceful Sunday afternoons for relaxation. It's just the possible in the pan even. There's an awful lot of stuff to which you could connect security items.
Yes.
So, I say you're going to do Philips lighting, so this sounds like over the next 2 to 3 years you might end up integrating one product after another. So quite a very wide range.
Yeah, that's correct. So we have a plan for a huge number of integrations over the next 24 months of third-party hardware products that are not really Swann related. Some are security related, and some are more lifestyle or home automation related. There is a little bit of a grey border. You could say lighting, for example, the Philips Hue lighting system, is that really a security product. Well, no, it's not. It's a lighting product. It's a convenience product. But if you couple that with our powerful rules engine, and you say, well, if the smoke alarm goes off, or if there's glass break detected, someone's broken a window and trying to get into my house, turn the lights on. So you automatically turn the lights on. So suddenly the light bulb becomes part of your security system.
Geoff, I'm conscious you haven't eaten anything.
I'm
and we're going in T-minus 7 minutes to our next thing. So I might ask Tien to kind of wrap things up, if that's all right, Tien.
Sure, yeah.
While Geoff eats some food, and if there are any other broader questions back towards Ben, and obviously Tien.
But it's a sign of success if you don't get to eat your lunch till the end of this.
Thank you.
That's cool.
Well, any other questions for Ben? I don't want to wrap up too prematurely.
I suppose, what other areas are you looking at beyond, from Deloitte's point of view, that using subscription services? Because you're right, professional services is quite an interesting one to work in.
So having I guess, created a framework and got some experience in subscription services, we're approaching it two ways. We're looking at what else we can use the Deloitte Private Connect channel for, not in a product push kind of way, but using that ethos of starting with customer value first and working backwards. What are the other pain points that we didn't solve, excuse me, in the first pass? And it's turned us into a bit of a much more of a software company in that regard, or at least the kind of cadence that a software company has to have, where we all have releases every X period. So we're looking at a lot of our traditional services from that perspective. But then equally, having created the concept of professional services subscriptions, now our traditional services to their existing clients are looking at how we would actually turn, and we're in the midst of creating a product for some of our very largest clients, which will actually be a service, a data service, again on a subscription. So taking their data, turning it into insight, and giving it back to them on a subscription basis.
So is your idea, is that just Australia or is it elsewhere?
It started here in Australia, and it's being looked at in a number of geographies at the moment. So I won't say which ones specifically, but it is being looked at in a number, and we will launch in some other jurisdictions shortly.
Yeah. So, so I encourage you guys to if you got further questions. I mean, these are just some amazing stories as you kind of go back and you know, try to transcript these stories into articles and such. If you've got a question, we encourage you guys to reach out to them. Use Dave, use us as a connection point. You sort of step back and look at what's going on. Right, the picture that we like to paint is the last 100 years has been characterized by these product-centric business models. Right, these product-centric business models. If you sort of go back, you know, and say, look, the original vendor-customer relationship was a relationship, right? Small villages, you know who your butcher is, you know who your baker is, right? It's just, but when modernization, when the 20th century industrial system got set up, and you listen to Henry Ford assembly lines, right? The last 100 years has really been characterized by a product-centric business model where the goal was number of units shipped, right? The essence of it was, if you can raise some money, buy the biggest factory, the biggest number of trucks, the most number of stores, and if you can ship as many units through that infrastructure as possible, you can decrease your cost, right? Decrease your marginal cost, and that's essentially was the basis of competition. Decrease your marginal cost, that's your edge over your competitors, right? Yes, there's some value aspect to it, so you can raise your prices and decrease your cost, but that was it, right? That's essentially it. And these things are all changing, and if you listen to these stories, the picture that we get is the future really belongs to companies that know how to build relationships with their customers, right? Build deep relationships with their customers. You know, use technology to provide a differentiated service. Know more about the customer. What is the difference between Amazon and Walmart? And most people think it's because Amazon is e-commerce and Walmart is bricks and mortars. And that's not really it. Especially when you hear, you know, Walmart has a Walmart.com, and Amazon is actually opening stores in New York. The difference is that Amazon knows who you are. Amazon knows who you are. They track everything back against a specific individual, which is you. I can log into Amazon. I can go back and look at the first thing I ever bought from Amazon in 1997, which of course was a book, because that's all they sold at that point. But then you look at the history of the last, 17 years, 7 years, and I bought all sorts of stuff from Amazon. There's a stat that says there's 100 million people that walk into Walmart every month to buy something at Walmart. I mean, that's enormous, right? That's a third of the population every month. But Walmart has no idea what it is. Walmart doesn't track this back to the consumer. They know how many products they've shipped. They know nothing about their customer base, absolutely nothing. And that is the difference between Amazon and Walmart, and that's ultimately why Amazon's going to win. And so, go ahead. Yes, was there a question?
Wasn't Walmart the one that
huge data warehouses?
And they're the one that knew that girl was pregnant before her own family? And
Walmart plays with a lot of demographics, but it doesn't know anything about the individual.
I agree with Tien. I mean, we sell to Walmart. I know intimately what we're doing this particular project that we're working on. They do not know who their customers are.
Walmart says if you, and that's why they make all these mistakes. This is if you happen to buy this, then you're probably this. If you probably bought this, then you're probably pregnant, and I'll send you, a coupon for that.
So, a question about where your sales are happening in terms of company size or seat size. So, two great examples. What about, say, corner shop accountants, like small firms or security installers? But it's quite a high level discussion about subscription economies and so on, and people have business model before they can change it, right? So, are you seeing how much penetration are you seeing in the SME sector, say, from the, say, 50
Today,
what percentage of sales?
Today we really sell to startups and larger companies.
Okay, so how long do you think it will take for that classic, like up to 50 seats to switch on to, it's such a massive transition for, say, I don't know, a corner shop retailer say, oh, I'm going to start selling, make my milk, go back to delivery runs, ad service or whatever it is. That's, you still get that customer service and the subscription model there. But I'm just interested, like, how many accounting firms in the US, say 150 seats going, we are going to change our business model. Ironically, I think it'd be harder for them than it would be for someone like Deloitte that has the people that get it at a conceptual level to make the strategic changes.
It's harder, and it's not, right? These are smaller companies that are probably a lot more nimble. And when you hear these large companies transform, you think about what they had to do to transform and align their companies.
The startups and SMEs aren't. They're not that thinkers to drive. So, I mean, obviously, subscription companies is such a good direction for a lot of businesses.
But another way. So another way would be looking at the marketplaces that are ripe for subscription. So we've talked about consumer discretionary, maybe consumer staples, but now talking about professional services, which you're in sort of professional services as well. So healthcare would be an obvious one as well. Are you making any inroads into the healthcare marketplace?
We are. Well, so we definitely are in healthcare technology providers, right? Healthcare solutions. If you're talking about healthcare providers themselves, like doctors and dentists, we're not seeing as much of that, right? Those industries are very specialized. The billing models are very specialized. The way they price, the claims process is very specialized, and so we have not branched into that industry.
Not yet, anyway. Not yet.
Not yet.
It's just a piece of software.
Everything's just software in the end, but the other industry that we haven't branched into that we're seeing early signs of is financial services, including insurance. We're seeing people talk about insurance by the mile, but I think it's talk. It's probably still a year away.
Well, we have that in Australia. They have this UI, keep advertising on TV, and I'm pretty sure they're the ones that say we only charge you by the amount you drive. Now, how they're recording that, I don't know. I'm not part of that. But with the Affordable Healthcare Act or Obamacare being such a gigantic mess, they're probably going to need your services sooner rather than later. I mean, the website still doesn't even work to sign up.
We have one customer that's a healthcare exchange.
Whereas that's
Travel insurance is on a pay per trip basis still versus a subscription basis.
In the UK, it's you buy annual travel insurance.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
On a subscription basis?
Well, they try to
Look it up,
resell
say
you
it's
at the
a
end of
cheer,
the year.
It's not an automatic thing, but they're trying.
No,
yeah,
but it's,
yeah.
it's not per trip.
I mean, it's going to go that way.
Yeah.
That's automatic.
First, it also,
Depends what you
what extent you're getting into
Yeah.
the government market.
The government moves slow.
Yeah.
And so we've had conversations, actually here in New South Wales, actually. But government moves slow.
Why do you
You
think
realise
that
that
is?
there is in fact
Why?
a major government conference in a couple of weeks
Yeah.
on
I
precisely
think when
how
you-
to
if
get
you-
into
Yeah.
this sort of economy.
They do it in bikes, in the city bikes. They do subscriptions around that area, but not a lot of other
Yeah.
cities type services.
Yeah, I think ACG's got some
Bicycles,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
In a lot of cities.
Yeah.
New York.
Great for Canberra, they've got so many bicycle trails, they've got one right around the lake, mile in.
I think there's an inherent contradiction between worrying about the government being Orwellian and wanting government to be more efficient. I think inefficient governments are not necessarily a bad thing.
They don't know what they're doing. That's right. So what about when we end up with everything in our life is a subscription, and we just have like 30 or 40 $20 subscriptions, and then suddenly it becomes unaffordable. You need a subscription for all your subscriptions of some sort.
Yeah, it's another business model. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose the price is going to keep getting pushed down, or
it's hard to say it's
it'll go up.
unaffordable when instead of paying $10,000 up front, you're paying $500 a month, right?
Yeah.
And so
I suppose we
overall,
have to get to that problem first, right?
You have more services. You have a richer life because you have more services now.
Yeah.
They'll be trading off one set of problems for another.
It'll be a good problem to have, as they call it.
An opportunity for the aggregators.
That's it.
But it's an exciting world. It's an exciting world. It's a great time to be in technology. It's a great time to be in business. I think you're going to see a lot of innovations over the next few years. We're pretty excited.
Would you mind if we stop now, because we're doing our customer conference back over at Darling Harbour at 2 o'clock. We're on stage, which is going to be fun. We better get quick and we better get your makeup on, Tien.